so they could buy their way out of jail?
That's an interesting question, because they were never in jail.
Okay.
You know what I mean? In other words,
Well, they could
there's
stop.
decisions, people have crimes, they go through trial, and then the judge decides what they're going to get. It's the same thing here.
Okay, we're trying to, they could buy their way out of the indictment.
Yeah. And they also, one of the other things they do is when they're making this deal, they also have, if they did something which may be a question, they ask them to do things to correct some of the things they have done, other things they may have done which are a problem, and they put that into the deal. So there's a couple of things when they agree to do it.
Okay. Now, there's a bunch of sections here that were in this part of the budget bill that have been omitted. So we're not sure if they're going to wind up in another part of the budget. Is that it?
I'm sorry, say that again.
We have a few things in this budget bill right now that have been omitted, like established paid family leave, future night shift retiree premiums, Medicaid Part B and income-related monthly adjustment amounts, reimbursements.
Yes,
These were all intentionally omitted.
yes.
But we could see it, and that's where these things belong in the public safety, but we're going to see that maybe in a different budget bill that hasn't been drafted
Yeah.
yet. Okay.
Some of them will, some of them won't come back.
And we don't know which ones are coming back
No.
and which at this time. Thank you, Denny, very much.
You're
On the
welcome.
bill?
On the bill, Mr. Graff.
You know, usually every year we have the debates, and every year we're able to actually look at the language of these budget bills, and we're able to put it out in public, what's exactly going on with the New York State budget, to let people know what's going on. One year, our side of the aisle identified big cuts to OPWDD. And then later on, it was put back into the budget because they realized, you know, that wasn't a good idea. This budget process has been anything but transparent. And it's like, we can call this the Nancy Pelosi budget, okay? You got to pass it to know what's in it. And right now, I mean, we're frustrated on this side of the aisle because we can't even get the answers because nobody knows the answers. This is the worst budget process that I've ever seen since I've been up here. All right, and we're going to struggle through it, and the people that are going to suffer for this are the people of the state of New York. This budget is not going to be well vetted this year because of the way that it's being presented to us. I just think it's a sad day in the state of New York, and I don't think that this budget process, the people of the state of New York are being properly represented. Okay, I'm frustrated, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues are frustrated, and I'm sure people on the other side of the aisle have to be frustrated too, because they have no idea if things that are important to them are part of the budget or they're not part of the budget. So we're actually sitting here debating a budget, and we don't know what to debate because we don't know what's in it. So it's a sad day for the people of New York and a sad day for representative government. And I, for one, I'm frustrated with the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graff. Mr. Daniel Steck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the bill.
On the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been listening to the debate today, and I know we have a long day ahead of us, and that's fine by me because we're talking about $154 billion of the taxpayers of the state of New York, and certainly I think a thorough vetting is certainly in order, and that's why I rise today. This is our first bill. I've been paying attention to the debate. I do think that businesses that heard the governor say back in January that paid family leave would be entirely funded by employees are going to be very surprised when they read their newspapers tomorrow to learn that $10 million that they've funded into the workers' comp is going to be used to prime the pump for paid family leave. And I raise that not because it's $10 million out of a $154 billion budget is a showstopper, and certainly there's going to be a lot of things in here that a lot of us wouldn't like in the budget if each member of the legislature was in charge of drafting their ideal budget, you'd have 213 different budgets. So I understand that. Compromise is part of the art of the game that we play. However, I think it's very important, and the buzzword that I use when I talk to my constituents, all I ever expected out of any relationship that I've had with anyone, be it a family member, be it a colleague, be it a constituent, is strive to be reasonable. Reasonable. Reasonable doesn't mean lockstep, we agree on everything. Lord knows that there's very few situations in life that we have a perfect relationship where everybody's always in agreement. But I look for what's reasonable. And I'm going to rise, and I'm going to spare you all not repeating the speech on all 10 bills that we're likely to debate at some point in the next 36 hours. But I would suggest to the body that is not reasonable, as I've heard earlier today, to suggest that somehow state government is going to grind to a halt, the world is going to come to an end, a fissure is going to open, and the state is going to fall into the center of the earth if we deny the public, the press, ourselves, our staff, the constitutionally required 3 days to examine these bills. It's $154 billion of taxpayer money, and what's worse is it's taxpayer money added to a lot of policy, which, as one of my colleagues pointed out in previous on debate, don't need to be in the budget, could and should be their own standalone pieces of legislation, because perhaps if they had to stand on their own, they couldn't stand at all. But I think it's unreasonable to expect that the public is going to somehow suffer if, instead of finishing this at Friday morning, the early wee hours of Friday morning, as opposed to Monday afternoon, that somehow the public is going to be done a disservice. I think it's unreasonable to deny the public the access to these very bills. I was in the Navy. I've done the midwatch. It doesn't bother me to stay here till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, to this morning, tomorrow morning, the next morning. No one's shooting at us. We're not in the Persian Gulf in a 110-degree engine room. This is easy work. So I'm not bothered by the work. I'll read the bills. We've been given 3 bills so far today, 3 out of maybe 10. I've been power reading through it. There's 109 pages in those 3 bills. We're going to get another 7 to 8 bills, hundreds of pages coming. I'm not the fastest reader in the world, but I'm going to plow through it. And I'm going to get to a point where I can say yes or no on any of these bills. But what bothers me is the 130,000 people I represent, the 130,000 people you represent, and everyone in this chamber represents, they are all being denied the opportunity to kick the tires on these bills. And they're all going to pay for whatever good or bad comes out of this. I don't think it's reasonable to pass a budget today when, as of right now, 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., 4 o'clock on March 31st, we've only seen 3 printed budget bills. The other bills aren't printed. Why aren't they printed? Because they haven't been agreed to yet. We've got 8 hours left before the end of the fiscal year, and somehow we're going to shoehorn this debate into bills that we haven't even seen yet. They're unicorns. I don't think it's reasonable to announce paid family leave will only be funded by employees and then find out that we're sweeping $10 million out of the workers' comp into that. That's not how this has been billed so far. And lastly, I think it'll be unreasonable that people woke up this morning, they walked out to the curb, they picked up their morning paper. There's nothing in there laying out any details of what's in the $154 billion spending plan. They're going to go to bed tonight, they're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and there's a good chance that we'll have somehow plowed through 1,000 pages of legislation to adopt bills that no one had the opportunity to read. None of the constituent groups, none of the farmers that are going to be affected by whatever we do with minimum wage, none of the nonprofit groups that are taking care of our most vulnerable populations that aren't going to see an increase in their revenues, but yet they're going to have to pay for the added expenses that this budget is likely to dump on them. The businesses that employ the vast majority of the people in our state, the small businesses, they're going to wake up tomorrow morning and they're going to say, holy smokes, how did this happen? It's been suggested that somehow we all know that this has been going on since January. Let me tell you something. I don't know about some of my colleagues in here. I talk to a lot of my constituents. They are not following what we do here on a minute-to-minute basis. They are putting a lot of faith and trust in us to get this right, to do this right. And I don't think in the last 12 or 18 months around here, we've given them collectively as a group a lot of reasons to have a lot of faith or put a lot of trust into our behavior and how we conduct business. This is an opportunity for us to have done that correctly, and instead we went the opposite direction. We went underground. This is my 4th budget that I've seen. This is without a doubt the most closed process a state budget that I've seen. But what's more important is listening to my colleagues that are a little more seasoned or senior than I am that have seen this, both elected and staff, and they're all saying the same thing. So clearly, I don't think we've gone in the right direction here as far as transparency or fairness to the very people that we've asked to put their trust in us, trust us with their tax dollars, trust us with making good policy for the economic future of this state. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I'll spare you all that I won't do this for every one of the budget bills, but I'll point out that I don't think it's reasonable that at 4 p.m. on the day that the budget's due, more than half the bills haven't been printed yet. And so in the 3 days that we're supposed to get constitutionally to look this over and the public to look this over, we're going to try to do that in what, as many hours, as many minutes? I don't find that reasonable, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This budget is an embarrassment. This entire process has been a complete and utter embarrassment. Closed-door process, in secret, no transparency. We not only disrespect the citizens of this state, the stakeholders who are going to benefit or be hurt by this budget, but we disrespect every single member in this chamber and in the chamber down the hall. Because there's not a single one of you in this room that knows what's going to be in this budget, what's in this budget now. Because you weren't there, you weren't part of the negotiation. You may have been briefed on a part here or a part there, but you have no idea what's in this complete package. In fact, we have no idea what the financial plan is of this entire budget. Imagine a budget that we're starting to vote on that we don't even know what the financial plan is. I've heard 154 billion, 150 billion, 158 billion, 160 billion. We have no idea because those numbers aren't finalized. This budget isn't finalized yet. We're voting on a budget bill right now where the two most often used words are intentionally omitted. Part A, intentionally omitted. Part D, intentionally omitted. Wait, there's more. Part H, intentionally omitted. Part I, intentionally omitted. Part J, intentionally omitted. Part K, intentionally omitted. Part N, intentionally omitted. Why? Why are they intentionally omitted? Because they're not done yet. We still don't have a final budget. We don't know what we're voting on, and we're all sitting here like sheep going along with the process. It's unbelievable. You would think, Mr. Speaker, after the Speaker of this House was convicted of corruption, where the leader of the Senate was convicted of corruption, that we would have an open and transparent budget process. The light of day would shine through, that Albany might change. But no, not here. We're going to ignore everything that's happened over the last year and go on with the same old process that we've been living under for years. This is an embarrassment. You should all be ashamed of yourself. I'm ashamed. It's ridiculous. There's no ethics reform in this budget. Of course, we don't know that because we haven't seen the whole budget yet. Millions and billions of dollars. Huge policy issues like minimum wage and family leave that we're going to talk about that we haven't even seen yet, that we don't know the details of, and that we won't see the details of until the middle of the night tonight probably. And then maybe we'll get briefed on it. Maybe we'll get a chance to read through hundreds and hundreds of pages of a budget that's going to run the state of New York, almost 20 million people, 150 something, we don't know, billion-dollar budget that we're going to push through in the middle of the night. We're not going to know a single darn thing that we're going to be doing because we won't have the details. The stakeholders won't know. The press won't get a chance to vet it. Are you kidding me? Is this really how we're going to run this state? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Palmisano.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Will Mr. Farrell yield for a few questions?
Mr. Farrell, will you yield?
Yes, I will, Mr. Speaker. Yes.
Farrell yields, Mr. Palmisano.
Thank you, Denny. I'm not going to really get into the process part of the budget right now, but I did have some couple questions because I know we're talking about public protection, and certainly we have some questions about what's in there or where it is, or if it's not here. So I was hoping maybe you might be able to shed some light if it's in this budget, or if it might be in another part of the budget, or where it is or where it's not. But I wanted to talk about our correctional system in particular. I know earlier this year, back I think it was around I want to say around September, around December, there was a settlement that was reached between the administration and from a lawsuit that dealt with special housing units in our prison system, where inmates who misbehave or do something wrong, they were put into a special housing unit or like a solitary environment. Because of a lawsuit, the state settled that for, I want to believe it was around $50 million maybe, to address that issue. Do you know, was there anything in this budget or this bill that deals with that settlement or the funds for that bill?
And how much was it? Let's see. $3 million was put into solitary confinement reform, and $47 million, and $47 million over 4 years for facility renovations.
That's in this bill?
Yes.
Okay.
No, hold on. It's in their capital bill.
So that will be coming up in the capital bill.
Yeah.
How about, and I'm just asking a question because I'm not sure if this would be in the capital bill or not, or if it would be in this bill. But what about issues for our corrections officers? I know that settlement was to try to address issues for inmates who are in prison, but what about, for example, in many of our correctional facilities, because the governor has touted the number of prison closures we've had in the state over the past several years. But anything that's been done as part of this budget bill or one of the future budget bills we're going to see later, dealing with the issue of double bunking or double selling in our prison systems?
There's nothing in this bill.
So there's no plan by this administration or by this budget within this bill, and I know about prospective bill, but there's nothing that was going to deal with the problem that we have in our prison system right now with double bunking and double selling.
Not in this bill.
And are you aware if it might be in one of the future bills? So when that comes up, we could talk about that. Would that come up in the capital bill maybe?
No, not at this point.
All right. So there's nothing about in this bill about double bunking or double selling, but there is something in here about dealing with the special housing unit lawsuit that was settled earlier this year.
Yeah.
Is there anything in this bill that was providing for more correction officers to be hired in our prison systems in this bill?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything in this bill that's provided for more correction officers to be hired within our prison system?
Increase. It's not in this bill.
No.
Because it's an appropriation,
All right.
and we're not doing appropriations in this bill. This is language.
Okay. So there's nothing in here about double bunking or double selling. There's nothing in here about more corrections officers being hired. Is there anything to provide for additional training or for our corrections officers? Would that be in a different bill as well?
Different bill.
Different bill. How about for our one of the problems we hear is that not enough for drug dogs, because drugs are a major problem in our prisons right now. And we hear that there's not enough drug dogs to go around to sniff out this problem of drugs. Anything in this bill to deal with that?
No.
All right. But it could be in another bill later.
Yes, it may be.
All right. All right. Danny, thank you for your time. Mr. Speaker, on the bill.
On the bill, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I think part of my frustration and my questions with this area is this is a very important issue for me and for a lot of members on our side of the aisle, and I think some members on your side of the aisle as well. last year there was a settlement reached between the administration to deal with special housing units in our prison population. This was a tool that was used to deal with inmates who are violent, who are abusing the system, hurting corrections officers, hurting other inmates. And it took away some tools. This settlement took away some tools in using of these special housing units or solitary confinement. I have a concern about that because we're providing a settlement that's going to provide additional money to deal with that issue, but there's no more money to deal with new corrections officers in our prisons. There's no money to deal with training for our corrections officers so they can be safe and know what's going on. There's no money for drug dogs. Drugs, you talk to anyone, our corrections officers in our prison population, drugs are a major problem in our prisons, but not enough drugs for all the drug dogs for the prisons. I don't understand that. This governor has touted the number of prison closures he's made under his watch, including Monterey Shock, which in my opinion was the absolute worst decision, one of the worst decisions this governor has ever made, and this House accepting it. The fact of the matter is, each and every day, we have brave men and women that go into our prisons that go to work, and they don't know if they're going to come home or going to be attacked. Just recently this month, I had a corrections officer in Elmira who was stabbed 3 times. They were trying to break up a fight. They wouldn't listen, and they were stabbed 3 times. We have inmates who are continually being hacked. The assaults in our prison continue to rise. And the issue of double bunking and double celling is still there. I know some have said it's gone away. It's not. I've visited prisons all around the state, in my district. You have bunks on top of each other. This is not a safe environment for the corrections officer, and it's certainly not a safe environment for the inmates in that type of situation. If we're going to make that type of commitment to settle lawsuits and make sure that services are provided for our inmates in the prison population, we certainly owe a responsibility and have an obligation to protect the brave men and women who risk their life, who go into a dangerous situation when they leave their families in the morning or night, if it's a shift work, and don't know what's going to happen. We need to give them the tools and resources so they can do their job. We don't want to know what's going on in the prisons. We drive by the prisons. We just hope that people stay in there. But there's brave men and women working in these facilities each and every day, and the fact of the matter is they're not giving the tools they need to do their job so they can be safe. We need to give them the drug dogs so they can sniff out the drugs in prison. We need to give them the training they need. We need to get rid of these double bunking and double selling situations to make sure the situation is safe for the corrections officers and for the inmates. And for talking about all the prison closures and wanting to say how good that is, the assaults continue to rise in our prisons. And the medium security prisons are getting worse and worse because the violent offenders, they're more in those medium security prisons as well. So I think this administration, I think this House really needs to look at this. I don't know, obviously it's not in this bill. Maybe it's in one of the next bills. I doubt it. I would like to see a commitment from this governor to stand up for those individuals who protect us each and every day, doing the job that we don't want to think about, seeing things that we don't even want to see or hear about, but they're at risk every day, and sooner or later, you're going to see another inmate stabbed or attacked, another correction officer stabbed or attacked, and one of the days they're going to lose their life. We need to stand up for these brave men and women who stand up for us, and that's a concern I have, and hopefully we can see more of a commitment from this administration and this body moving forward on this serious, serious issue.
Read the last section. Oh, excuse me. Ms. Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I heard here, with all my respect to my colleagues, a lot of complaint because people don't know what is in the budget. I have been sitting in conference as a Democrat. I know what is in the budget because our leader have been every day feeding us with information about the budget. And more than that, taking the questions from us and the demands each one of the members of the Assembly on the issues that they prefer to have in the budget. I'm a proud member of this Assembly, and I have been here 22 years, and this is the first year that we participate one by one in the budget. If the people in the other side are not doing the same thing, I'm very sorry for them. You can copy what we are doing. And
Mr. Butler, why do you rise?
Would Ms. Arroyo suffer a question? Would she yield for a question?
Ms. Arroyo does not yield.
You do not yield?
Not, sir.
I'm sorry?
I will not.
Ms.
Okay.
Arroyo does not yield.
All right, thank you.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Mr. Butler to explain his vote.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Had I been given the opportunity, I intended to ask Ms. Arroyo, since our Democratic colleagues know everything that's in the budget, if they could explain to us what is in the family leave budget, because when I look at this piece of paper we have before us, it's omitted, but there's $10 million for administrative costs. So are we voting for it? Are we against it? I presume it will come up later, but we're supposed to be making an informed decision on this budget proposal before us, and we're given scanned information. And if you guys have information that we don't, I think that's patently unfair. You know, we were told to look to the media and look to other sources to form an opinion about this budget or get details about it. And I'll tell you what I've come to learn from what I've read and observed in the media accounts. I think this budget is not the product of negotiation. I think it's a product of intimidation, coercion, and capitulation to the governor's will. And I think it's shameful the way this is being presented to us. And again, if our colleagues in the majority have information that we don't have, I think that is abominable. And I vote no.
And Mr. Butler in the negative. Mr. Ra to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just quickly, as my colleague just alluded to, you know, we have a couple of the bills. There's other bills that are still out there. There are things that aren't in here that may be in there. It makes it basically impossible to make an informed, educated decision on voting on these bills, which is in part why I'm going to be casting my vote in the negative on this bill. This process, again, needs to be done in a way that both the members of this House, but perhaps equally, if not more important, the public has the opportunity to know what's on these bills that we're voting on today. So I'm going to be casting my vote in the negative on probably many of these budget bills because there just is not a complete picture for us as we're trying to debate and make decisions. Thank you.
Mr. Ron, the negative. Mr. Goodell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a funny budget process in a way, I mean, in kind of a perverse way. We're voting on Article 7 language to implement a budget and implement appropriations that we don't have. It seems to me that the proper way to adopt a budget is you agree on what you're going to fund, and then after you agree on what you're going to fund, you talk about the language you need to implement that budget. So here we're being asked to vote on the implementation language of a budget that doesn't yet exist. Very strange and kind of a backwards way. And of course, our Constitution is clear. And when it comes to Article 7 language, no provision can be embraced in the budget unless it relates to a specific appropriation. And then the intent of that language is limited to that appropriation. We don't have any appropriation. We have no clue whether any of this budget language we're talking about even meets that fundamental basic constitutional requirement. So for that reason, I'm voting, and the fact that we're taking almost $250 million out of the workers' comp fund rather than giving a break to our employers by cutting the rate, that we're funding with employer money the family leave program apparently, even though we've been saying repeatedly that they wouldn't pay anything. For that and many other reasons, I will be voting no on this particular item. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Goodell in the negative. Mr. Cahill to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To explain my vote, our new speaker is fond of saying, "Don't let the perfect stand in the way of the good." And that is certainly something that we're looking at here today. This is anything but perfect, and no one is going to deny it. But we are human beings, and we are operating under a set of guidelines and rules and constraints that bring us to a certain point. And that point is March 31st, the day before the beginning of the fiscal year. Many of the people in this room have talked about the importance of passing a budget on time more than many of the other aspects. I was not one of them. I think a better budget can wait. I'm perfectly willing to wait, but many of my colleagues don't share that point of view. Many people in the public don't share that point of view. I want to address one specific point, and then I'll sit down and cast my vote. In terms of the family leave, this is an important step forward, a major step forward. And if you read the language of the bill, it says in order to accomplish implementation. This is to get it started. We can't use the money that has not been collected yet to start it. It has to start somewhere, and that's all this is. This isn't taking money out of the pockets of the employers. It is taking money out of a fund that exists and is sitting there, allowing us to get started, one of the most progressive and important social policies that New York State has passed in a very long time. I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Cahill, in the affirmative. Mr. DiPietro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be extremely brief, just 4 words. This budget is crap. Thank you.
And I presume you vote in the negative.